Hello, I'm Maureen Reidy, the President and CEO of the Paley Center for Media, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you to a very important and timely PaleyImpact program, the role of entertainment and social media in combating anti-Semitism. This event is the second in our quarterly series and our ongoing effort to examine media's powerful shaping influence and unique ability to raise awareness around the growing crisis of anti-Semitism. This conversation and all events in our series seeks to shine a light on how media can educate, inform, and make an impact on this vitally important issue. All programs in this series are made possible by Sherry Redstone and REA and Alana Burkhoff, whom we thank for their most generous support. Today, October 27th, marks 3 years since the horrific attack at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, in which 11 members of the congregation were murdered. 3 years later, we continue to witness an alarming rise in anti-Semitism and acts of violence against Jews here in America and around the world. This heartbreaking tragedy reminds us of the continued importance of combating anti-Semitic messages, myths, and misrepresentation with authentic and positive portrayals of Jewish people and culture. Entertainment and social media are among the most powerful platforms in this effort. Today, there are many creative and influential people employing innovative storytelling techniques and new technology to offer a fresh perspective and to combat this enduring prejudice. We are so pleased to have several of those talented and bold voices joining us for this most important conversation. Never before has Paley's mission been more vital, as media has been the undisputed connector to a nation in these unprecedented times. And Paley is uniquely positioned to meet this moment with impactful conversation led by influential figures such as the esteemed guests that we are truly so honored to have with us today. We welcome to our conversation Julian Edelman, 3-time Super Bowl champion and founder of Coast Productions; Josh Kraft, President, Kraft Family Philanthropies; Lior, creator and star of Fauda and Hit and Run; David Strathairn, actor; and Assaf, Swissa, founder, Superdigital, and co-founder of Coast Productions. Before we start the program, one be perhaps keeping note, if you are tweeting, we have our Twitter hashtag is #Paley, and we also invite you to subscribe to our Paley YouTube channel. You could just click on the subscribe button below this video. Now, our moderator is Malina, Saval, features editor for Reidy magazine, where she covers film, TV, music, and theater. Her work has appeared in the LA Times, Glamour, Tablet, Forward, and the Jerusalem Post. She's a 2-time LA Press Club Award winner and has written screenplays for Touchstone Pictures and Walt Disney Films. I'm so pleased to welcome our moderator, Malina Saval. Over to you, Malina.
Thanks so much, Maureen. Welcome to this special PaleyImpact, the role of entertainment and social media in combating anti-Semitism. I'm Malina Saval, features editor at Variety. I am honored to welcome Julian Edelman, Josh Kraft, Lior, David Strathairn, and Assaf, Swissa. I want to reach out to every one of you individually. We'll start with Lior. Being a member of the entertainment and having access to social media as somebody with a wide platform, what do you think the most important thing that you can do as a member of entertainment to combat anti-Semitism, given that you have this platform of social media?
First of all, I think we can do it through art. First of all, the social media is social media, and I think I don't know how much power I have in my social media, and I prefer to do what I'm doing and in the art scene, in my movies and my TV shows, to show the other side, to show how we are living and why we are doing the thing that we're doing, even though it's complicated, of course, to show it. And, just what I would suggest is to try to be very gentle, but still don't be afraid to say the thing that you really want to say.
Josh, I want to go over to you. You're a person who kind of straddles the worlds of entertainment, but, in terms of more coming at it from a humanitarian, philanthropic, and also, sports angle slightly. So what do you think given your position, what do you think the most important thing you can do is to help fight anti-Semitism in a public forum.
Thanks, Malina, and again, thanks for having me here and being able to represent my family on this important call. It's an important subject to all of us. So I would say, plain and simple, social media, you can't go that deep with social media. I think what all of us have to do, whether you're in the entertainment world or the sports world, is let your peers know the facts. Because sometimes they might be retweeting or sending something out with anti-Semitic undertones in it, and they may have no idea that they're doing that. So folks that know and have an understanding and can educate their peers have a lot of power in that and can have those important conversations. And secondly, it's probably a theme that I'll come back to, is we got to personalize the Jewish experience, especially here in the United States. Talk about how 2 civil rights workers were killed in Mississippi registering African Americans to vote. Talk about those stories, tikkun olam, hospitality, what's so important to us as Jews and why it's important to America, and those kind of things, those storytelling, those personal stories, we hope can impact folks who might not be aware of them in a positive way.
Yeah. No, absolutely 100%. Julian and Assaf, you guys have worked together, I think, since 2012. Was when you guys first kind of roundabout got together. So there's probably so much you can both say on this. Julian, you've been vocal on social media with your platform in May during the war between Gaza and Israel. Assaf, you're obviously very familiar with this world as well. What can you both do as members of the entertainment industry to quickly and readily and effectively, I don't even know if it's fight anti-Semitism, but, just kind of get rid of it, for lack of a better term. Like, what can we do to dispel this anti-Semitism that is just running rampant today?
Well, first off, thank you for having us. And I think it's human nature. When you feel attacked, you put a guard up, right? But instead of putting a guard up, and this is how we've always handled our situations, with whether it's Deshaun Jackson, Miles Leonard, or at the war, instead of going out and throwing up a guard, why don't we give out a hand and bring a conversation out to really educate people? Because 9 out of 10 times, especially like in the situations that I've dealt with, it's just been out of ignorance. The anti-Semitism's been out of ignorance. A lot of people don't necessarily know. So instead of going out and attacking someone, we've always chose to, hey, why don't we sit and talk about this so we can let you know how we feel about this, and then we'll learn about what you don't like as well, about your community and the misconceptions of what everyone thinks about you guys. So that's kind of one thing. And Assaf and I were talking about the rabbi.
Oh, yeah, tell the story.
And so a rabbi was teaching a class of kids, and a kid stole another kid's watch. And instead of, going out and, so he lines him up on the wall. He lines him up on the wall and he goes and checks him. But when he goes to check each kid, he makes each kid close his eyes. And so he checks the kid and he finds the kid who stole it, and he gives it to the kid who it belonged to. And that kid who stole the watch ended up becoming a teacher because of this lesson, because he had his dignity still. He wasn't, maliciously attacked or, and that's how you get progress. And that's kind of how we've tried to treat the anti-Semitism that we've, encountered in our careers and on social media.
Well said.
Awesome. Assaf, you have anything to add, or?
I'm here for color. I'm just I'm going to put some data. I'll just say real quick, the work that Josh and his family are doing is more of what we need. Combating anti-Semitism on social media is a very different effort than we've ever combated it before. And it takes a more sophisticated look. And today, Julian will do the talking, but I'll provide some data points on earned media and stats and stuff like that.
Okay, great. David, how about you? What can you do as an actor, as an artist?
Thank you for including me in this esteemed conversation, first of all. Lena, I think that the arts, and I tend to pick up where Lior left off, is that the theater particularly offers a communal experience, a physical communal experience, where people are sitting shoulder to shoulder with a loved one, a friend, or perhaps a stranger. And that in presenting material that deals with this issue, people have an opportunity to triangulate their own personal feelings, views, opinions, ideas about this situation via a stage production. And they, without even knowing it, they are sharing this experience with a stranger. And I think that can offer potential discussion, ignite discussion in a safe place where people they leave their guns at the door, they come and they want to see a play. They're giving over to what they're seeing, and it's kind of a wonderful place for dialogue to happen. I think live theater can do a lot to give people a very personal, visceral experience, much more than social media like Twitter or Snapchats or those kinds of things. And at the moment, we're striving to do that with a play about Jan Karski, who was a courier for the Polish government in World War II, who was actually the first man to report the Holocaust to the West through London and to FDR and Justice Felix Frankfurter, himself a Jew, who both denied his reports. But he shows an example to the world of somebody who was not afraid to speak and did it in an extraordinarily faithful and dutiful way. He accepted that responsibility, and he spoke to the world about what was happening. And through this play, which we have adapted from his writings and his everything that's said about him, we're trying to reignite that conversation and reignite that methodology. We also have a film out there. If we're talking about media, we have a film capture of the play, which hopefully will hit the screens next spring. But I believe theater and art, the creative arts, is a place where everybody has come to for years. It's an ancient tradition, storytelling. And we give over to our stories to find ways to grapple with particularly difficult and critical issues. So that's why I'm glad to do it. And thank you so much for including me on this panel.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to ask you more about the play specifically a little further on in the program, because it is so important. As we all know, when the Holocaust was first covered in the United States, it was a page 6 item. Exactly. And so it's incredibly important that we highlight those figures that push to the forefront what was happening. It's interesting because I feel that there were so many different experiences in May and June in particular, when there was the rash of hate crimes, against Jews on the streets in LA and New York. Those that were very active in social media were having a completely different experience than those who weren't active in social media. And I think if you were active on social media, I'm a journalist, so I have to be active on social media. There was a rash of anti-Semitism coming through, just a steady barrage that was destructive and demoralizing and depressing and horrific. I think we need to get away from trying to educate the masses vis-a-vis that platform, because it's certainly important, but getting people together in rooms, I think, is just an essential component of fighting anti-Semitism. And to dovetail on that, I'll start with Lior. There are so many different, the stereotypes about Jews and the misconceptions about Jews are endless. They go back thousands and thousands of years. What do you think today is the most, or one or two of the most harmful misconceptions, stereotypes about Jews that we really need to debunk? We really need to, these are misconceptions. We need to just finally nip in the bud right now? What are they, and what can we do about, debunking these damaging stereotypes?
The first one is that we are controlling the world. I wish, but we're not. So, just kidding. We're not controlling the world, and this is a huge misconception. And you are controlling Hollywood, you're controlling everywhere, you're controlling the money. There are all those theories, conspiracies that about Jews and money, Jews and controlling the world. So this one is, I don't know how, it's so hard because it's such a huge topic, and how you attack this topic, how you convince the mass of people that we are not those things that they think of us. Something that really made me happy in the last few weeks happened in Egypt. It's very different to a Jew who lives in Israel than a Jew who lives in the US. Totally different situation, because here I can feel the hate sometimes, not because I'm Jewish, because I'm Israeli. So and as an Israeli, immediately we're fighting back. I'm fighting back. I would never getting someone who insult me in the street, and he will not get out of it. I will fight back. But this is me. And I know it's so hard when you are in diaspora to do those things, because you're living you are a minority, and I'm in a position of majority in Israel. But the thing that I wanted to tell you about, that in Egypt a few weeks ago there was an article in a very big newspaper about how Avi and I, my co-creator of Fauda and Hit and Run, we changed the point of view of how young Arabs in the world see the Israelis now, because now the Israelis are, because of us, and we didn't meant it to be like that, but this is how it happened. Because of us, the Arab population, when they watch our shows, they see that the Israelis are not like we are not controlling the world. We are not doing a Holocaust to the Palestinians. And we are human beings we have bad guys, we have good guys. Sometimes the good guys doing bad things, sometimes the bad guys doing good things. And for them now, we are the new Israeli. And the new Israeli is also the new Jewish. So probably we're going to talk about anti-Zionism comparing to anti-Semitism, and where what is it and where it's combined. So I think now through our shows, people see all over the world a different kind of Jew, a different kind of Israeli. And I think this is a victory for us, and this is a victory of against anti-Semitism as well.
Thank you, Lior. Josh, I want to go to you next about this question too. What are the most urgent misconceptions that what are the misconceptions we most urgently need to debunk and overturn?
Well, I'll just follow up on what Lior said. The greatest misconception and the most toxic misconception about Jewish people is that we control the world in every aspect, whether it's Hollywood, the banks, etc. We're 0.2% of the world population. So I'm really not, it makes it very hard to control the world when you're 0.2% of the world's population. But then that conspiracy theory, it's funny, we were doing some research yesterday, similar conspiracy. In the 1970s, 30% of Americans didn't believe that we landed on the moon. So these conspiracies, and the problem with it, and I'll borrow from my friend Julian, is when you're confronted with these conspiracies, if you go back at the person sort of in a defensive posture, like, how can you say that? This isn't, you're just going to lose them. And then they're going to dig their heels in deeper. As Julian mentioned, human nature. They're not going to change their mind. So the way to do it is to engage them and bring them out. Talk to them, find time to see where they get, where this conspiracies, where these thoughts come from, where they emanate from, detail by detail. And then, as I mentioned previously, for Jews, I think we need to personalize and tell personal stories, narratives. And Lior sort of said it. There's all different kinds of Jewish Jews in America, in Israel, Jews of color, LGBTQ Jews, there's all kinds of Jews, and everyone has different stories, different experiences. And we need to share those with these people that hold these, are hell-bent on holding this crazy number one conspiracy theory. And I think when we get time with them and speak to them the way Julian said, we can share about our experiences, and then I'll go back and say the experience of a lot of Jews in America who have been impactful in, quote, healing the world, making an impact on social causes in our country.
Thank you. I wanted to just quickly add, also in terms of facts, the FBI has repeatedly come out with numbers saying that the Jewish community is the single largest group targeted for hate crimes. This is just a fact. These numbers were not crunched by a Jewish organization. These numbers are crunched with, by the FBI. And yet this statistic, this fact has not landed with the same sort of urgency as it has for every other ethnic group that's been targeted. So I don't know, Josh, if you want to why is this just not being heard? It's falling on deaf ears. And then I'd like to go to Julian and Assaf to talk about that as well.
I think the issue is that rightly or wrongly, in general, people don't, they see Jews as, white, wealthy people, and how could they be victims of any hate crime when you're white and wealthy? And this is an American point of view. And, that's, again, it's sort of I don't want to say superficial. Well, it is a superficial way of thinking, because, and it goes back to the point all of us have been saying, we need to educate folks and teach them that, white, wealthy Jews are there's Jews just like there's wealthy African-American people in America. And there's so many different people that represent Judaism, as we said, Jews of color, Jews in LGBTQ, Jews, it's so personalizing and humanizing the Jewish experience is what's going to educate people. But I think the number one reason it's not a big deal to folks is that they just see Jews as, quote, the white privileged class, unfortunately.
No, absolutely. And I think anyone that's spent time in any other country or in Israel, for example, knows that, talk about a melting pot. Jews come from all over the world and are not just comprised of, Northern European or Ashkenazi Jews, which is just something that most Americans still do not know.
Malina, just one thing, my father is from Iraq, for example, and my mom, she's from Algeria. And they both, they calling themselves Arab Jews. So it's, and in Hit and Run, in our show, we brought African-American woman, Jewish African-American, because when I met so many, nobody knows that there are so many African Black Jewish people in Israel, who lives in Israel, who came from Ethiopia, from Africa, from all over the world. And there is a huge community in the US as well. So we just need to show it, and people will understand it, and they know that we are not just, as you said, not just white privilege ruling the world.
Yeah, and it's fun, right office over from me, as Julian and Assaf know, is an NFL Hall of Famer, African-American Jewish person, Andre Tippett. So
Ivan Fears. Coach Fears is also Jewish.
Ivan Fears, exactly.
No, I'll piggyback off this as well. Everyone already said the misconceptions, so I'll leave those because that's clearly what they are. But instead of worrying about the misconception, and this is how I've always tried. I always try to make an example. So if people are going to hate on us for something, why don't we rise up above that and you become the example of, yes, we were oppressed people for a very, very long time, but we're also the standard of how to defeat oppression, not defeat it, but also, overcome it and really go out and be an example to help other people, because once you start doing those acts, then people they can't say anything bad about you.
Right.
And that's what I think about it. Because everyone has a misconception on every group. And yes, there's so little of us, but if we make a huge impact on examples of how to go out and you go do this and do that, that's really where I think you can make some hay, personally.
Just to add to that, you can make an argument that we as Jews have had the most successful struggle in America, right? We've achieved arguably more, right? It wasn't that long ago that we were at mass persecution, and what we've achieved in a very short period is sort of outstanding. So in my mind, combating, and I think to echo what Julian's saying, combating these sort of misconceptions, it matters, and I think we're doing a great job at that. But what about also helping the other minority groups and letting them see that we're helping them, and we're going to help them climb to the top of the mountain too, a little bit.
Exactly. And to dovetail on that, I think, Julian, you handled with such elegance and grace when you reached out to, fellow athletes, Deshaun Jackson and Myers Leonard, when they made anti-Semitic comments. And, at that point, you did show that media can be a powerful platform in not only combating anti-Semitism, but just in terms of establishing empathy and compassion and helping to educate people. So, in the age of cancel culture, where somebody says something wrong and they're just canceled, because I'm not sure that's the best way. What is the lesson that you have learned, or that you hope people can take away from how you handle that, so that people can also better handle these interactions? It's not just about saying you're done. That doesn't push the needle forward. And you showed that.
Yeah. I grew up with kids like Deshaun Jackson. I was always the only, white football player. And so I've been around this community, and a lot of times, especially in that particular situation, I don't think he really knew what he was doing. So I really didn't think it was fair to just go out and cancel this kid and make him, his life is ruined, because I'm not that kind of guy. Yeah. And so I wanted to open a conversation with them, like, hey, like I said earlier, if we can really put our feelings out on the table, that's how you're really going to get progression. And, to this day, he still calls me and texts me and Instagrams me, hey, how you doing? Just because that's going to make an impact on his life. And he knew he was wrong after the fact. And then once we opened up the conversation, then it changed what he was really trying to, or thought he was doing. With Myers Leonard, the same thing. He didn't really necessarily know what he was doing as well. And it's another thing. It's another way to educate, because that's where you're going to get progression. You're not going to, if you go out and say, hey, and attack this guy, he's going to look at you and say, well, screw you. You know what I mean? And that's not getting anyone anywhere.
Yeah.
If I can put a stat out there, a mind-blowing stat, I think that everyone will enjoy here. When it comes to digital earned media is when a publication covers subject matter organically. When it comes to digital earned media, not including broadcast, Julian had more earned media on the response to Myers Leonard than he did winning Super Bowl MVP. Right? That is an important stat to consider. Yeah. If you execute it right, the people will interact with it and engage with it and believe. It's all about the execution. I think Julian nailed that one, and that right there is the whole truth.
I keep remembering, I think it was Michael Rappaport in the documentary you guys did. He said, everyone hates the Pats, but everyone loves Julian Edelman. That, of course, not me, because I'm from Boston, so I love both. But I think just exactly what you just said, that was a shining moment for you, Julian, and it was so important. David, your one-man show, Remember This, The Lesson of Jan Karski, tells a story of Polish freedom fighter Jan Karski, who tried to alert the world to the horrors of the Holocaust before it was understood. Neither you nor the late Jan Karski are Jewish, but this is an incredibly important story, about the effort to combat anti-Semitism. Why did you want to take on this role? You're now in the process of turning the play into a film. What can you tell us about the project?
Well, he called himself a Christian Jew after he went through the experiences later in life. His wife was Jewish. She lost her whole family in the Holocaust. But bringing him to the forefront, to the public's awareness, I think you can see that it doesn't take a Jew to defend a Jew. It takes a human to defend a human. And to pick up on what Lior says, and Julian and Josh, all of them say that we need to get to the table. We got to put things out there. Jan Karski said there are no such thing as good nations, bad nations. There are only good people, bad people. And everybody has an infinite capacity to do good or infinite capacity to do evil, and that we have a choice. And the reason we've done this play is, I think, can sort of echo what Julian is doing in terms of getting to people personally, is that we're giving it a platform for an educational application. Where young people, students can this can awaken them to the issues that they're facing today: climate denial, racism, gender bias, all of these things. How do you navigate this incredible volatile landscape? Well, here was a man who navigated the Holocaust. He says that great crimes starts with little things. You don't like your neighbor. You don't like them because what? They're different? Avoid this. Avoid making distinctions. Don't dislike people. Go out, notice people, and get to know them. There's a program which I think is an amazing program that's been created at Georgetown University, where we originated this play. It's called In Your Shoes. And they have foreign service students sitting with each other, telling their personal stories. It comes from a wide variety of walks of life. Then you go away, and that each person has to come back and tell the other person's story. They have to listen, it develops empathy, and it also says you have to articulate what might be something you don't agree with, or that you have no idea about, you've been ignorant of. And in that exchange, a very personal exchange, like Julian having with the Deshawn, and it's there where I think it happens, with the youth, and with where you can sit across the table from somebody in a safe place and say, okay, I'm going to walk in your shoes for a little while. You walk in mine, okay? Nelson Mandela did it with the reconciliation, having people sit across the room from people who may have butchered his family. And I think it, because there are these things that exist in our neurology that we're not even aware of. How do we come up with these prejudices? How do you interrogate those prejudices in a safe place where you don't feel threatened and you have to become defensive, and you're being accused of having a belief that you don't even know where it came from? So it's a very, very delicate situation, but I think it's absolutely essential, and it takes courage. It takes a lot of courage and moral integrity to confront somebody who may just want to dismiss you off the face of the earth. And so I think that through the arts, we're trying to do that.
I think what you just said is really important. And what you said, it takes a human to save a human. It just reminds me of, if you go to Yad Vashem in Yerushalayim in Jerusalem, there's the righteous among the nations, where you honor people that were there. There's righteous Gentiles. I've been to Poland. And I love that you're bringing that up and that you're doing this, because I think it is so important. It's not just incumbent upon members of the Jewish community to stand up for Jews. It's incumbent upon all humanity. And I think that's really important. Today we mark the 3rd anniversary of the massacre at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. In a world in which Jews are the victims of such real violence, Lior, how do you approach dramatizing violence against Jews in your work?
So first of all, we're not just showing violence against Jews. We are showing, violence, just violence, because we're having Jews who's doing awful things to Palestinians, but also Palestinians doing awful things to Jews. So it's not about Jews and not Jews. It's about Israelis and Palestinians and Fauda. And in Hit and Run, it's about Israelis as well and Jews in America who's living there, immigrants, but it's not about Jews. It's about Israelis and Americans. So I think that, you know, when you show it and people, you know, there was a rabbi came to me that I was surprised that he watched Fauda, and he said that I changed a lot on his students because he showed them a scene from Fauda. And I said, what? And he said, yeah, because they're not in Israel, in the Mea Shearim, they're not watching TV. And the scene was that I was on my knees and getting executed. And I'm saying the Shema Israel. And when we wrote it and when we shot it, I thought that people will watch it, just my family probably, and that's it. We didn't know that Fauda would be such a huge thing. But then it was in Canada that I met this guy from Mea Shearim, and he told me that he showed it to all his students, because in that moment when I'm praying Shema Israel, when I'm going to get killed, everybody in the world saying this Shema Israel with me, and they want me to live, and most of them don't want me to die. So I think to bring this and to show it, to show that we are very complicated. Everything is so complicated. It's not just black and white. It's everything. Most of the things are gray. And I love what you say, guys, that we just need, you know, when someone comes to punch you, hug him. Come, hug him and tell him that you love him. And it's okay that you understand what he feels. Because every one of us, we have these feelings as well against other people. It's not, we are not so, you know, there is anti-Semitism, but also we know what's hate from all sides. So just, you know, instead of fighting back, I'm not saying don't tell the thing that you really think, you know, don't be afraid to say everything that you know, that you want to say. But if someone comes to you and is very violent, just hug him, just give him a smile. And immediately, it's so hard to fight someone who smiles at you. You know, believe me, it's hard. So just let's smile and let's hug them again and just explain them who we are. You know, all of us probably want peace, we want love, we want to just live like everyone else, and live our life and protect our people and respect the other people. And we're just looking for respect as well.
I love that. David, did you want to quickly add something?
Yes, I keep thinking about the role of social media, actually, all these social media platforms, which are disembodied things. But it's really extraordinarily encouraging to hear from Julian that the hits he got on that were more than he got for the Super Bowl. So for me, there's evidence and hope that social media can do that. I truly believe it's best done in person. So I'm just wondering, how can you adapt, if possible, social media to make it as close to a vicariously shared experience? To me, I'm not a genius, but I would love how can we make our technology actually flesh? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can I take
absolutely.
Can I take a stab at answering that? So Lior, hero of mine, Geva, love you, big fan. And I think what's so important about what Lior is doing is we've got a word around here. And the word around here that we use is pro-Semitism, right? That's what we say. We're always talking about antisemitism. But we used to have Jerry Seinfeld and Adam Sandler down your throat every night, installing Jewish cultures and value into the pop culture. And slowly it's sort of like, it sort of faded away as the internet became more prominent and we started to shift and things like that. So, in essence, what Lior is doing is so important because he's installing our culture into the pop culture. And that's what we have to do. We have to bring back Jewish heroes and Jewish culture and Jewish icons back into the giant sphere, and not just in traditional media and even now streaming. We've got to bring it into social media where it is woefully absent. I live in social media. I'm a tourist in the real world. I live in the social world. And social media, and not to get too crazy on you, that's not even the end. The next thing is the metaverse. Even social media is starting to become a little bit dated. Now we're going to start seeing Web3, and we're going to start seeing these crypto formats and these Discord channels, and it's all going to evolve there and will be even further removed. We need to create our Jewish heroes to be creating pro-Semitic cultures.
Yeah.
Culture, and not just always combating anti-Semitism.
Yeah, I mean, that's so important because, anti-Semitism isn't a tenet of Judaism. And it's so rare that you see people on the internet or in TV or whatnot, just kind of being proudly Jewish and living a modern Jewish life, whether it's in the diaspora or Israel, just people that are okay with being Jewish, I mean, it's so 100%. I could talk about that forever, but we got to move on in the interest of time. Josh, I want to talk to you because, you're heading the Foundation to Combat Antisemitism. It's one of its priorities is the Together Beat Hate initiative. And it describes anti-Semitism as an example of the fraying of democracy, which I agree with 100%. So, how can social media in particular help make the connection between hate towards Jews or any group as a threat to our society?
Thanks, Malina. So I'll start with the whole concept of the Foundation to Combat Anti-Semitism, and it's our first initiative on social media, Together Beat Hate. It's really my dad's vision after he won the Genesis Prize over in Israel in 2018. And his vision, or 2019, was, it's two things that are so important to him, his Judaism and America, especially American values, equity, individuality, diversity, and unity. And he saw with the rise in anti-Semitism being raised, an observant Jew here in America, it kills him every day. Still to see it today when a rabbi in Boston gets stabbed in public daylight in the middle of the day. And he saw that as something that needed to be addressed, and he was passionate about it. We need to do something. But at the same time, he realized that, look, wherever there's anti-Semitism, there's other forms of hate right in line, waiting to jump in to take its place. And that truly is the fraying of democracy. It truly is the fraying of the values that all of us love here in America that I already just talked about, especially my dad. So he figured with this Together Beat Hate, let's educate, let's get the word out about all forms of hate with a focus on anti-Semitism or Jewish hate. And hopefully we'll bring people into the tent, and then we can educate them not only on anti-Semitism, but we'll bring them in with other forms of hate. We've done social media posts about everything from Islamophobia to hate, LGBTQ hate, to racism, and bringing them in, getting people into our tent, and then educating them about anti-Semitism and its impact. And in the end, as Lior, David, Julian, and Assaf have all said, in the end, it is about stories and people and getting to people and connecting with people. And we have to do a better job at telling the Jewish story here in America, in Israel, and everywhere, and how Jewish values line up so well with American values, why it's such a powerful union for our country.
Thank you so much. I think we could all talk about this forever, and hopefully we can do it in the same room at some point, would be great. But my last question for everybody is, what will you think, when will you know that there's a sign? What's the sign that this collective effort to combat anti-Semitism is? When will we know we're making some bit of progress? I'd like to just go around, like, will there be a feeling? Will there be a statistic? When will we know this is working a little bit? And have you seen any moments like that? That would be my last question. Why don't we start with David, and we'll just go straight across.
Great question. I don't know if polls will be able to do it. Obviously, they have some kind of credibility. That's a great question. How will we know? How will we know? It may take another generation. It may, I hope not. Yeah. I hope the resiliency of personal prejudice and bias is that it will atrophy because of these great suggestions, that we start showing positive images of not only Jewish goods, but anybody who else has been deemed other. We should feel positive, stay on the sunny side of the street, because everybody wants to be there, basically. You don't want to be in a defensive stance for your whole life. You need to be on the offensive, to use something that Julian's
Football.
totally aware of. One of the greater offensive players ever.
Yeah.
We will know when we don't have to have these kind of discussions, when we can celebrate each other, our cultures, simultaneously, in the public square. We got to show that to our children. We have to have, Holocaust education in the United States is severely lacking.
Yeah.
That does start there. Let's start with telling stories to our children.
Yeah, I mean, there's a district in Texas that wants to make sure that if you're discussing the Holocaust, you also offer the opposing view. I mean, we're still there. So we have a long way to go.
Yeah.
Lior, when will you know? When will there be a sign? What might that sign be that we're making some progress?
You know what? I'm very optimistic. I really am. And I see those signs every day. Today, I was sitting with an Arab guy in Jaffa, learning Arabic together and talking about peace and about coexistence and about the communication between the two people, the Muslims and the Jews. When I was in the UAE, I was sitting with people from Iran, from Syria, from Lebanon, people that as an Israeli, I don't see them at all. And we were talking as human beings about everything, and about art, about love, about feelings, not about hate. And so every day I have those little things that I'm finding myself talking to people and trying just to spread my love to the world and getting it back from time to time. So it's gonna be hard. It's gonna take time. But we just need to be very optimistic and not being afraid of anything of those things, because we are strong people.
All right, Julian and Assaf.
I'm going to bring it back to football. There's 17-week season in a football season, right? And it can get grindy, as they would say, in that middle pack. And you get up, you do your work, your body hurts, and you start to think about the end goal. But that's not really what you should be thinking about. You should be thinking about your improvement for that day and what's on your plate for that day. And that's how you create improvement. So that just popped up in my head. It's so hard to quantify how this is going to work, what's going to happen. But when you start to see non-Jews and Jews, little kids that are sharing the same values, that's when you're going to start seeing that. And I'm very optimistic, as Lior said as well, with this whole thing, just because of the information age, basically, of what we're in right now. It's a renaissance. The fact that we can sit here and talk like this, and we're even talking about having conversations with other groups. I mean, 15 years ago, before all this technology, we would never have this wasn't even, remotely thought about, really. I mean, you could talk about it, but it wasn't there. So, I'm very optimistic.
All right, thank you so much. Josh, last but certainly not least.
Thanks, Malina. And I guess to follow up on Lior and Julian's point in just a simple way, we'll know we're at a good point when there are conversations and not arguments, and not literally, trading barbs or trading vitriol, but conversations where Jews, non-Jews, and other people that are different can share the thing that binds us all, their humanity. We talk about our love, we talk about our hopes for our children, and we talk about our compassion for our fellow human beings. That's when we know we'll be at a great point.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us in this special Paley Impact event. It was so meaningful. Let's continue the conversation, and just want to say thanks again to the invaluable support of the sponsors, Sherry Redstone and Arya and Alana Burkhoff. And don't forget to subscribe to the Paley Center YouTube channel right now. Just click on the subscribe button, which should be below this video. And be sure to support the Paley Center and consider becoming a Paley member by visiting paleycenter.org. So thank you so much to everyone for joining us. I'm Malina Saval, features editor of Variety.